I don't think enough people know who Opal Lee is. Most people know Juneteenth. They know it's a holiday now. They know there's a cookout somewhere. They know they don't have to go to work. But the woman called the grandmother of Juneteenth, a lot of people couldn't even tell you her story. In 1939, Opal Lee was 12 years old. Her family had just bought a home in Fort Worth, Texas. 4 days later, on Juneteenth, a white mob showed up. About 500 people. The police were called, but the mob stayed. Opal's family got out, but the mob broke in and destroyed everything they owned. And I keep coming back to that date, Juneteenth, a date that's supposed to commemorate freedom. A 12-year-old Black girl watching a crowd decide that her family didn't belong. On that day of all days, and Opal Lee remembered it for the rest of her life. Now, if you know anything about Black families, you know we don't just carry photographs and heirlooms. We carry stories. The stories our grandparents told, the stories our parents told, the stories we refuse to let disappear. And Opal carried that one with her for decades. Most people know Juneteenth as June 19th, 1865, the day Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and informed enslaved people that they were free. But here's the part that gets missed. Too often, really. Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation 2.5 years earlier. The enslaved people of Texas were legally free. The problem with that is that freedom on paper and freedom in real life aren't always the same thing. It took the Union troops arriving in Galveston to enforce it. That's what Juneteenth commemorates. Not just freedom, the delay, the distance between what the government says and what people actually experience. And if you're Black in America, that theme just keeps showing up, doesn't it? Then Opal Lee got older, much older, 89 years old, an age where people have earned the right to sit down if they want to, you know? But Opal decided to start walking. She wanted Juneteenth recognized as a federal holiday. Originally, she wanted to walk from Fort Worth to Washington, D.C., but her family convinced her not to do the whole trip. So she started walking 2.5 miles in cities across the country instead. But that number wasn't random, y'all. It represented the 2.5 years between the Emancipation Proclamation and Juneteenth. City after city, year after year, she collected more than 1.6 million signatures. And while a lot of people were just discovering Juneteenth, Opal Lee was making sure that nobody could forget it anymore. Then in June of 2021, she stood beside President Biden as he signed Juneteenth into law as a federal holiday. She was 94 years old. The same woman whose home had been destroyed by a racist mob on Juneteenth. The same woman who spent years walking so people would remember the significance of that day. The same little girl from Fort Worth, standing in the White House watching Juneteenth finally receive federal recognition. History usually doesn't give people moments like that, you know? But Miss Lee got one. So that's why we have to keep coming back to her story, because when people think about Juneteenth, they usually talk about the holiday itself, right? But I keep thinking about the people that carried that history long enough for us to inherit it. People who refused to let that story disappear. People who kept telling it even when nobody was listening. People who understood that if you don't protect a story, eventually somebody else is going to rewrite it. Opal Lee is 99 years old. Opal Lee is 99 years old. In October, she will be 100. She is still here, still reminding people what Juneteenth actually commemorates. And if anybody's earned the title of Grandmother of Juneteenth, it's probably the woman who spent the majority of her life making sure that the rest of us remembered. Say her name, Opal Lee.